Hi, this is Siofra Bradigan, and this is Siofra's Magic Alcove. So, I thought we could have a little fun on this video and talk about the Faery Star, which is a 7-pointed star that a lot of people that work with fairies or are part of those traditions tend to use. So, I don't know how people learn how to draw this thing because it's complicated. I mean, I guess the easiest way to think of it if you're trying to draw it is that you have the 2 points at the bottom and the 1 point at the top, similar to the pentagram, and then you have 4 points on either side, which makes it the 7-pointed star. So you would go up and down and then sideways and over and across and up and down in order to finish it. But it's certainly not something that I use on a regular basis or that I figured out how to draw in the air. I'm much more familiar with the pentagram. But there are certainly some groups who are also part of the fairy tradition that use the fairy star or the septagram, which is the 7-pointed star, as well as or instead of, sometimes with, sometimes just separate by itself as the pentagram. So according to the information that I've gathered about this particular star, the 7 points have different associations compared to like the pentagram, which is the earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. And so the septagram has the sun, the forest, the sea, magic, the moon, the wind, and connection or spirit. So you have the earth as the forest, the water is the sea, the wind is the air, the sun is the fire. So you still have the same elements, but then you've added, and spirit, which is the same, but you've added magic and the moon. So it's kind of like more inclined in that direction. So anyway, their associations with the star, I haven't been able to find out which point represents what thing, although if it's similar to the pentagram, the top point would be a spirit kind of thing, if you're trying to figure out what the associations are. But one of the points, it represents power, personal will, and determination. So, this is something we've talked about a lot. What's the nature of power? Where does it really come from? Personal will is what a lot of people use when they are trying to manifest things. They use their own personal energy or their own willpower. Although you could, say that that would be also a representative of natural authority. So, being in charge of the self and determination is also part of that kind of process there where you're being able to command the spirits to leave you alone if you're not interested in having anything to do with them, or if they're harassing you and telling them to leave, that kind of thing. Determination is a part of that because it's like, in order for that quality to work, you have to be very focused and determined. That's kind of like, this is the way it is, this is my will, and everything else has to comply, especially anything non-human. With animals it's slightly different, but anything ethereal and non-substantial. So that's one of the points. So, understanding yourself and understanding power, what the purpose of power is in your personal will, is clearly important to any magical path, not just working with the fairy realm. And I don't really work with, well, let's see, I guess I do work with them they don't work for me, as it were. We cooperate on certain projects together, and it's just sort of a different way of looking at things. So the second point is unconditional love, wisdom, and growth. Now, unconditional love is sort of a tricky thing. It means accepting things for exactly what they are without judgment, in the sense that like you're not trying to change it or modify it, you're just accepting it. But to me, unconditional love doesn't mean putting your own boundaries completely aside and just allowing anything to happen. That's not what love is, to start with, because you have to love yourself as well as love others if you're going to understand love. It's not just about other people, it's about yourself as well. So, like in everything else, balance is important. And wisdom is certainly different than just knowledge. It's wisdom is understanding the implications of what is happening, what you're doing, or what someone else is doing, having lived through enough of it to have a foundation for making choices and decisions that are healthy. And growth is getting to the point where you can see yourself and others for where we're at, and then choose to change and become more than just where we're at. It's interesting that they connect those things together, because unconditional love for a lot of people means never, like in the movies, never saying you're sorry, or never confronting someone about bad behavior or anything like that. And yet that doesn't work with wisdom and growth, because without some kind of push, movement, internal at least, growth is not possible. So it's interesting anyway. The third point is knowledge and intelligence. So there we have the idea of knowledge is without knowing how things work or understanding the nature of things, having a foundation in that, then it's difficult to make choices or decisions about anything at all. So, and intelligence has to do with that idea of being able to study, learn, absorb information, understand and comprehend the things that are around us. It isn't just about facts and figures, it's about a way of being. And a willingness to look at assumptions about reality and so forth in order to understand what they are and whether they have validity for us and for others or not. Someone once said that I was at a talk, I can't remember who said it at this point, that truth is a universal truth, is something that is true for all people, for all time, for all things, which means there isn't much of it, that kind of truth. But we certainly have stages of understanding and comprehension, and as our knowledge changes or grows and we gain more of it, then we can change our perception about what's going on and change our position of how we feel about things based on allowing new information to enter into our sphere. I think it has something to do with critical thinking and not believing something just because somebody said it, but exploring the foundation of it to see if it makes sense, if it has validity in other than a fantasy reality. I mean, at this point, there are a lot of people I've encountered that believe movies, fiction stories, and stuff like that have no basis in fact or reality. They're wonderful stories. They're fun to watch, and they're entertaining. They stretch our mind in new ways, but they're not about reality. They're a fantasy world where things work different. And although sometimes it seems like it would be nice to be able to have that kind of fantasy world on a regular basis, we still have physical reality that we are a part of and that we participate in. And, it's like we have 3 dimensions